people are too lazy to mess it up if you make it harder, where they have to take that apart and drill a hole to mess it up. They'll mess it up every day if you can just turn a knob. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to try to solve a problem with this mini skid steer using this grapple, and it relates to the hydraulic flow rate. Now, I'm specifically addressing that with this attachment on this machine, but I actually think it could be helpful in a lot of different applications with hydraulics or even pneumatics. I'm also going to cut up a little bit of firewood, and I want to talk about some misconceptions the viewers seem to have about this machine and why I wanted it. All the comments on this machine, or a lot of them, have been kind of negative, and I think that's because I haven't done a good job of explaining the best use cases of the machine. So first, let's get the grapple working. We'll get to the rest of that later. And I guess before we fix it, I should show you the problem. So as you can see right there, it was slamming pretty hard, but then also I closed it really slowly and under control. And that's a function of the way the lever works and the fact that this is a continuous flow hydraulic circuit meant to run something like a stump grinder or a trencher or a brush cutter or a front mount auger, all of the wide range of cool attachments that you can put on one of these. Those need high flow, this doesn't. The joystick has a range of motion, but it's kind of a short range of motion, and to move that slowly, you have to really ease into it, and it takes some patience and concentration to open and close the grapple slowly. And clearly, I can operate it slowly, but I want to be working and not thinking about that. I just want to push the lever, and it moves at the correct speed. So the way we're going to do that is put flow controls right here on top of that cylinder. The hoses stay with the grapple, so I'm not changing anything on the machine. This won't have to be adjusted for every attachment. The flow control will be on the one implement that I want to slow down. So the way I discovered this problem is I was out here doing some different work, making a video, talking about these attachments, and I fired it up and it slammed too hard. And I asked you guys in that video, I'm like, you know, what would you guys do about this? And I got a lot of suggestions, but I'm not going with the most common suggestion, and I'll give you two reasons why. One's long-winded and maybe not even accurate, and the other one's just straight facts that I think apply to everybody. So the first answer is kind of anecdotal, and it relates to my time as a factory worker. And I ran machines that had tons of air cylinders on them, pneumatic. And those all were fired off of a switch. They'd come in and do their job, pick something up, move it over here. And a lot of them had adjustable flow controls on them. And those adjustable points, in my mind, became a big hassle. And it was a lesson that my dad taught me that I didn't agree with at first. That you think, man, if you can adjust that easily, you can fine-tune it to what you're doing and it'll be better. Well, the case was, when there was something wrong with the machine especially, people would try to compensate with that air pressure, and it was something you were constantly fighting with. And if that had been working at a certain flow rate, and then it quit working, you had another problem. And sometimes it was better to not have that adjustability on a machine. If we had a set of problems that were constantly being tinkered with, and this shift makes one adjustment and adjusts something else to compensate for that, and the other shift tries to redo it their way, it was a constant battle messing with that. And I know I'm the only one who's going to be using this machine, but I think there's something to be said for a set it and forget it. You get it right, and then you just leave it alone. And if at some point that isn't working, there's another reason. Because of that, my first thought was orifices. Why not use an orifice? The way we would do that on those air cylinders is usually those would go into like some type of a pipe thread fitting. We would thread the inside of those, run a set screw down in it, then drill a hole in the set screw, and that would set our airflow rate. And then it would always be like that. And Dad would say, people are too lazy to mess it up if you make it harder where they have to take that apart and drill a hole to mess it up. They'll mess it up every day if you can just turn a knob. And so that was more of a funny little story than anything. But here's the fitting that lets oil through into the cylinder. And here is an orifice. You can see a dramatic difference in the size of the hole that lets the oil through. So I think I'm going to put this fitting back in and continue using it to give us that little bit of an angle. And because it's got a rubber seal where this goes into the cylinder, so we'll put that back in. I just basically took it out for demonstration. Now the second part of this story is if you think I don't really care about what you're saying, I'd rather have it where I can adjust it. That's nothing wrong with that. But the second problem is cost. And you may be able to find a lower cost supplier, but I was leaning towards getting orifices. I went into a hydraulic shop and I said, I want to either get orifices or an adjustable flow control. And he said, well, we got the flow controls in stock and they're right here. And he went and got one off a shelf. He said, or I can order the orifices for you. And I said, well, I kind of am leaning towards orifices, but what are your opinion? He said, for that application, he'd probably use an orifice, but either will work fine. And then he said, probably the main reason he would use an orifice was the cost. For 2 flow controls for this, because you need one for each line, and then an adapter to go to that, and it looked like a really simple, just little rectangle box with a knob on it. It was going to be over $200. I got the 2 orifices for $37 or something like that. So I have a hard time imagining myself spending $200 to reduce this flow. Now, if you were using these hoses on 10 different attachments, and each one needed a different amount of flow, you would definitely get the flow control. But I need this for one application. Now the counterpoint is, if you get the wrong size, you're going to buy them twice. And I'm just guessing, along with the hydraulic guy, at the size we need. These orifices are 0.062 diameter. And I looked at Ken's bolt-on hooks because one of the viewers suggested Ken's bolt-on hooks has this exact kind of orifice. And the ones he says are for giving you more precise control over the adjustment of your top and tilt kit. And the orifices he sells are a 0.031. So half the flow rate of this. And at first I was like, oh man, I probably got them too big. It's still going to slam. And I thought, wait a minute. When you're doing a hydraulic tilt, you're only moving a tiny little bit, right? And this, we don't want to sit and wait on it to close. So hopefully that 0.062 is a good rate. All right, so if someone was asking me for this exact combination I have, that machine and this grapple, what size orifice would I say? That's 0.062. I'd probably go with the 0.040, 0.050, maybe just a little bit smaller. But when you saw this close and open pretty fast, that was just full on the lever. That was not trying to slow it down at all. And on every time when you saw it before, even when it slammed open and slammed closed, I was still trying to ease into it. So that's a dramatic improvement. Now let's go down there and use it just a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about why I wanted to have this machine here. And first, I want to get rid of your fears that I'm going to turn into an all mini skid steer YouTube channel. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to use this, but I'm also going to use tractors an awful lot too. I try to tell myself if I'm gonna split firewood at all, I wanna do at least one full tote, and I only did about 2/3 of this one, but I've got some other work that needs to get done today to prep for tomorrow. Right now I'm gonna head to Home Depot, but while I was fixing that grapple, bucking up the log, splitting this firewood, it's been about an hour since I recorded the intro. And in the intro I said I was gonna talk about the advantages to that machine, and I've realized that deserves its own video. I'm gonna make a separate video about why someone would want that machine instead of a compact tractor. But there are a list of reasons. But also for me, that having one of those would never mean I didn't need a tractor. I'm always going to have a tractor. I'm not brush hogging fields with that machine that moves 3 miles an hour and has attachments on it that are only 4 foot wide. It's just not gonna happen. But that doesn't mean it's not a great tool that for some people and some applications that might be better than a tractor. And we're gonna go all the way into that on another video. So I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.